Mukunda met Prabhupada first on the Lower East Side of New York. One of the very first disciples was Mukunda. And he came out west to meet me, and at that time my girlfriend Malati became Malati, and convinced us by his example that Srila Prabhupada, we was just called the Swami then, was his spiritual master. And knowing Mukunda so well and Jamuna so well and seeing them so convinced by one man, I didn't accept immediately. I spent about 3 months skeptically watching them. They'd given up meat eating, drugs, intoxication, gambling, sex, everything they'd given up. I was still doing all those things, and I just was waiting for their armor to crack so I could say, you see, he wasn't the right guy after all. But after 3 months of that, I just had to throw in the towel and say, hey, if this guy is happy all the time, doing what he's doing, and I'm always unhappy, why not give it a try? So I accepted Prabhupada through my friend, Mukunda. But the moment I saw Prabhupada, I knew that I'd made the right choice. And my first personal interaction with Prabhupada was the day after that dance at the Avalon Ballroom. He was living in an apartment above the temple on Frederick Street. And he had asked Mukunda, I think, who had put on this dance, who was responsible for this dance, and he'd said, well, Sam. Oh, bring him here. So he introduced me at that time. And Prabhupada says, you have made this money? How much money did you make last night? And I told him I thought it was about $2,000. I wasn't sure. That was really Melanie's department. She collected the money at the gate. And he said, oh, in those days that was a lot of money, especially for the Hare Krishnas. And he said, well then, those who make the money should know how to spend it. Do you know bookkeeping? I said, the rudiments, not much. Then I will teach you. Every day you come here, and first he had me come over and sit beside him on his Vyasa-san like this. And he had Mukunda bring some paper, and he began to show me double entry bookkeeping, expenses and costs. And meticulously, he would have me bring the books up every day. And if they missed by a few pennies, he would be on my case. He could see my heart wasn't in bookkeeping or being a treasurer at all. I'm a spendthrift when it comes to money. but that was his practical aspect. He always associated with us or brought us into his charmed us in a practical way. He employed us in Krishna service however he could, and sometimes tricked us just to get us to do some service. But by sitting next to him there on that first morning, then I knew beyond any doubt. I'd been reading autobiography of a yoga and yogi and all this kind of Tibetan book, all those kind of books that were prevalent in those days, commonly available about yoga and mysticism. So I had a little idea what to expect in a spiritual master. And Prabhupada didn't levitate, or he didn't, flash my eyes or make anything crazy happen to convince me. He just talked me into it. I just never felt so peaceful and at home. But that was my constant desire, is to be with him all the time as much as possible. It was the best feeling I'd ever had. And I'd tried every kind of intoxicant there was, every kind of sensual thrill there could possibly be that in those days was available. And nothing matched that peace and tranquility and exhilaration of being with Prabhupada. That's what I liked. The exhilaration, the excitement of he was almost like a pirate, We were all members of his crew. We were fearless too. He told us, that's right, he made it very clear when we were first starting out that you stay high when you chant. You get high when you chant. You get high when you chant. you have nothing to fear when you chant. You have nothing to fear when you chant. Those were his main ways of selling us on this idea. And it worked. I mean, everybody experienced a high. Prabhupada would come down every morning at 7 to the temple room, and every evening at 7, and personally lead kirtan. For an hour, we would have these hour-long kirtans every morning and every night. Just the same old standard melody. None of this fancy stuff. No Namo Om Vishnu Padayas. No, nothing about Gaur Nitai or anything else. Just straight Hare Krishna. And the hippies off the street who were there and the early fledgling devotees would we would get loaded out of our minds. When Prabhupada would stop the kirtan, everybody would just go like this, wow, I feel great. And that's what hooked us. He got us on that. And then he would lecture, but not long ones, 15 minutes, simple. And then he would go home, go upstairs. And every day he did this for week after week after week. We lived a few blocks from the temple, and one time there was no money for rent. I mean, I was working as a carpenter, not making very much, and supporting a family. And a few of the other devotees, like Jayananda was a taxi driver, and he was giving all his money. And a few other devotees had jobs, but maybe less than 10%. Everyone else was a hippie, So there was never enough money because we were feeding everybody on the street every day, and there was rent to pay and so on. And gas to put in our cars to go out and do programs and so on. So we were really in a bind. There was no money for rent. We were behind about 2 months, and we were in very grave danger of being evicted. The landlord had severely gotten down on us. And Malati and I walked out on the street, on Ashbury Street, in front of our place there, one morning early to go to the temple, to walk to the temple for kirtan. And there were all these $100 bills blowing down the sidewalk. One after another. We just started running around the street picking up $100 bills. There wasn't a person on the street. No one ever figured out where that came from. But these kind of things, I could always harken back to the magic days of Prabhupada. These are kind of things we began to expect of Krishna. Prabhupada, another thing he inculcated for us from an early day is that if you take a risk for Krishna and stick your neck out to spread Krishna consciousness, Krishna must help you personally. And those who see Krishna closest take the biggest risk for him. And we tested that to the max, and it worked. We got to see Krishna. We got to see $100 bills rolling down the street. This spirit has died down. This spirit has died down. We're too comfortable. One time, I remember someone asked him when we'd taken a stroll down down Haight Street. There were thousands of hippies gathered in the street on a daily basis, and we walked several blocks down the street to the temple. And somebody asked him, Prabhupada, what? Swamiji, he wasn't Prabhupada yet. Swamiji, what do you make of all this? And he looked at that person like, no big deal. I'm a Calcutta boy. This is nothing. Well, at the time, Malati, my wife, and myself, and all of us, of course, in the Haight-Ashbury district, were very much attracted to things Indian. And there was a new shop in town in San Francisco down at Fisherman's Wharf called Import Plus or something like that, Import Plaza. And they always had a lot of Indian stuff in there. And especially Malati used to shop there a lot. And she was a bit of a kleptomaniac too. We didn't have much money, so this is from the hippie days, going out with the bags of groceries and stuff like that, other soup. Anyway, I don't know if I should say this, Malati, but please forgive me. She saw this little doll. I mean, there were 3 of them, 3 bins full of 3 distinctly different dolls. And she copped Jagannath, Lord Jagannath, Krishna. The one with the big eyes and the black face. And I wasn't in the room when she showed it to Prabhupada, but apparently she just, as a matter of interest, asked him one day what it was. What is this? And it just blew Prabhupada's mind. He fell down on the floor and started bowing to it. That's what she told me. And he saw it as a great sign that Lord Jagannath wanted to come and live in San Francisco. So he asked her if she knew anyone who was a carpenter. At that time, I was the treasurer of the temple. And she said, oh yeah, Shamsundar, he likes to carve wood. So Prabhupada called me up, and he had the little figurine, and he sketched it a little bit different for me. I had a drawing of some kind.